Hello and welcome to BYJU'S Exam Prep IAS. Welcome to the discussion on daily quiz for the 12th of May 2022. Before we begin, a few important announcements. Environment and ecology is a very important part of the UPSC exam preparation, more so when it comes to the prelims examination. Over the years, there have been a good number of questions from this section, from static part, current affairs, and even contemporary issues. Keeping this trend in mind, we have been running the Environment and Ecology series under the Target Prelims 2022 initiative. So do join us live for the third part of this lecture on the 13th of May 2022 at 7:30 p.m. We are also glad to announce the National Scholarship Test. This is scheduled to be held on the 15th of May 2022 at 11 a.m. This would be a 2-hour test based on online mode, and the syllabus will be the General Studies syllabus of UPSC. Please don't miss this opportunity where you can win up to 90% scholarship. All you have to do is register first. The link for the same you can find in the description box below. Please note the last date to register for the exam is 14th May 2022, 6 p.m. Now let's start with the first question of the day. Which of the following statement or statements is or are correct? The first statement reads, National Policy on Biofuels 2018 prescribes usage of only non-edible raw materials in the production of ethanol and biodiesel, given the need to balance the food security of the nation. The second statement reads, Jatropha is one of the main raw materials used to produce ethanol. Third statement, National Policy of Biofuels 2018 initially aimed to achieve a 20% blending of ethanol in petrol by 2030. This target was later advanced to achieving 20% ethanol blending by 2025. Statement 4. Because of its high oxygen content, ethanol burns more completely than ordinary gasoline and reduces harmful tailpipe emissions. Now let's understand the context. This article in the PIB notes that leading oil PSUs have come together to sign a tripartite cum escrow agreement for the planned dedicated ethanol plants. Let's come back to the question. Note that in the initial few days, the usage of biofuels gave rise to certain concerns that the increasing usage of biofuels threatens the food security of mankind. There were arguments put forth that these biofuels should be only prepared from non-edible raw materials. However, contrary to what is stated in the statement 1, National Policy on Biofuels 2018 actually allows for the usage of even edible raw materials like sugarcane, sugar beet, sweet sorghum, corn, cassava. It also allows for the usage of damaged food grains. Also note, the policy allows for the usage of surplus food grains as well, but for this, it needs to take permission from the National Biofuel Coordination Committee. So, this statement stands wrong. To summarize, the policy on biofuels allows for the usage of edible raw materials as well. The second statement, Jatropha is one of the main raw materials used to produce ethanol. It is not ethanol. Jatropha is used to produce biodiesel. The second statement is also wrong. Moving on to the third statement. Initially, the national policy on biofuels aimed to achieve 20% blending of ethanol. This we refer to as E20. The initial target was to achieve E20 by 2030. However, given the increasing concerns over climate change and the urgent need for decarbonization of the transport sector, this target was later advanced to 2025. So, currently the target is to achieve E20 by 2025. Also note the national policy has a target for blending of biodiesel as well. It envisages 5% blending of biodiesel. Moving on to the fourth statement. Because of its high oxygen content, ethanol burns more completely. Now let's understand the chemical composition of ethanol. Ethanol is basically given by C2H5OH. This oxygen atom in the hydroxyl group ensures availability of sufficient oxygen for the combustion of ethanol. This results in lower carbon monoxide emissions. Hence, the statement 4 is correct. Since 3 and 4 are correct, the correct answer to this question is option C. Moving on to the second question. Which of the following would be the correct sequence for the below mentioned major ports of India, starting from the northernmost port and moving southward? The five major ports mentioned here are Kandla, Ennore, Mangaluru, Jawaharlal Nehru Port and Paradip. Now let's understand the context. This article from the PIB reviews the PPP projects, PPP meaning public-private partnership projects at major ports in India. Before we get down to the question, let's understand what do we mean by major ports. Major ports are defined in the Indian Ports Act of 1908. Major ports are those ports which have been notified by the central government in the official gazette or have been declared as major ports through any law. We also have something known as minor ports. While major ports come under the jurisdiction or control of the central or union government, the minor ports come under the administration control of the state governments. Now let's look at the five ports mentioned here. The Kandla port is located in Gujarat. It is basically a tidal port. Ennore port is located in the state of Tamil Nadu, and please note it is India's first corporatized port. Mangaluru port is located on the west coast of India. It is situated along the coast of Karnataka. The Jawaharlal Nehru Port Trust, also known as Nhava Sheva, is the largest container port in India and is situated along the coast of Maharashtra. Finally, Paradip Port is located on the eastern coast of India in the state of Odisha. From this discussion, it becomes clear that when we arrange these five ports from north to south, we have Kandla, Paradip, Jawaharlal Nehru Port, Ennore and Mangalore. So from this discussion, the right answer to this question would be option B. Moving on to the third question. Which of the following statements is or are correct with respect to the Foreign Contribution Regulation Act or FCRA? There are three question statements here. First statement. The provisions of the Act are applicable to only associations like the NGOs, whereas the individuals receiving foreign funding are regulated under the Income Tax Act of 1961. The second statement. Once granted, FCRA registration is valid for 5 years. The third statement. Once approved to receive foreign funding, the entity receiving the foreign funds is free to utilize it in whichever manner it deems fit. Please have a look at the options. Now let's understand the context of this question. This article from the Indian Express notes that CBI has arrested 14 people including 6 MHA officials belonging to the FCRA divisions. These officials have been alleged to have received bribes in lieu of giving clearances to NGOs under the FCRA Act. Moving back to the question. Note that the Foreign Contribution Regulation Act aims to regulate foreign donation or funding into India. Though the FCRA Act has been in the news associated with NGOs, please note it not only regulates foreign funding to associations but also to individuals. So this statement is wrong. The FCRA Act places some conditions for entities receiving foreign funding. Now let's understand what are these three conditions. First, the entities need to register under the Act. Second, they have to open a bank account in designated branches and they are allowed to receive the foreign funding only through these designated accounts. Third, these entities can utilize these foreign funds only for stated purposes. So this makes statement 3 wrong. By the elimination of statement 1 and 3, we are left with only option D, 2 only. As stated before, the entities receiving foreign funding need to register and this registration is valid for 5 years. Moving on, which of the following factors could contribute to the depreciation of the Indian rupee? Monetary policy tightening by the US Federal Reserve, monetary policy easing by the US Federal Reserve, inflow of foreign funds into India, outflow of foreign funds into India, and the last one being widening trade deficit. Please have a look at the options. Now, what is the context? These articles from both the Hindu as well as the Indian Express note the Indian rupees slump to an all-time low of 77.36 against the US dollar. In fact, Indian rupee has depreciated by almost 5.4% in the last year itself. These articles discuss the various reasons which are contributing to this slump or depreciation and also analyze what could be the adverse impact of this rupee slump. Let's come back to the question. Now observe option 1 and 2 are contradictory. In the sense either option 1 should be correct or option 2 should be correct. Similar is the case with option 3 and 4. So in such type of questions, it is best to answer by elimination. We'll take both of these aspects and analyze. Now, let's understand how the monetary policy of the US Federal Reserve can impact India. Now, what we mean by monetary policy tightening is the interest rates in the economy are increased. Now, how does this affect India? This increase in interest rate acts as an incentive for foreign investors in developing economies like India to withdraw their foreign investment and invest back into the US economy. The foreign investors withdrawing their investments from India need to be paid back in US dollars. This increases the demand for US dollars in the global economy. As a result, the US dollar strengthens and consequently the Indian rupee weakens. So from this discussion, it becomes clear that the monetary policy tightening by the US Federal Reserve does indeed contribute to depreciation of the Indian rupee. On the contrary, the monetary policy easing by the US Federal Reserve has the reverse impact. So this is not right. While discussing the impact of the monetary policy tightening, we have already discussed that the outward flow of foreign funds from India leads to depreciation of the Indian rupee. So by this discussion, option 4 is correct while option 3 is wrong. Now let's have a look at the options. Since statement 2 and 3 are wrong, we can eliminate option A, option B. We are left with option C and D. The answer to this question is option C, 1, 4 and 5 only. Now let's understand how the widening trade deficit contributes to depreciation of the Indian rupee. Please understand the value of the Indian rupee depends on the demand and supply of the Indian rupee and the US dollar. Now, as the trade deficit of India increases, India will have to pay back in terms of the US dollars. This will increase the demand for US dollars, strengthening the US dollar and in turn weakening the Indian rupee. Moving on to the final question of the day. This is a question from the 2019 prelims paper. In the context of which of the following to some scientists suggests the use of cirrus cloud thinning technique and the injection of sulfate aerosol into stratosphere? The four options are option A, creating the artificial rains in some regions. Option B, reducing the frequency and intensity of tropical cyclones. Option C, reducing the adverse effects of solar wind on the earth. And option D, reducing the global warming. Now let's first understand what do you mean by cirrus cloud thinning technique and injection of sulfate aerosol individually. What is the role of clouds in the heat budget of Earth? Observe, clouds have two important roles. One, they reflect the incoming solar radiation. Second, they observe the warming infrared radiation emitted by the heated Earth. So clouds induce the cooling effect by reflection of sunlight and they also lead to warming effect by the reabsorption of the infrared radiations being emitted by the heated Earth. When it comes to cirrus clouds, please note cirrus clouds are located 10 km above the Earth's surface. So they are basically high clouds. In the case of cirrus clouds, the infrared absorption capacity is much greater than the sunlight reflection capacity. Hence, when it comes to cirrus clouds, they have a net warming effect on the Earth. Now, after having understood the role of cirrus clouds, let's understand what is cirrus cloud thinning. Basically, cirrus cloud thinning or CCT is a form of climate engineering which involves the thinning. Thinning means the reduction of the optical depth of the clouds. Now, this thinning action induces a cooling effect on the Earth's climate. Now, what does CCT involve? It involves injecting ice nucleating substances such as dust in the upper troposphere. Now, let's understand what do we mean by stratospheric aerosol injection. Basically, this is also a method of solar geoengineering. What it does is, it injects aerosols such as alumina, calcite and salt into the lower stratosphere. Now, the injection of such aerosols increases the reflectivity of the solar stratosphere. and hence it is able to reflect back more of the incoming sunlight. Also note that this is similar to the effect had by volcanic eruptions, which release particulate matter into the atmosphere. This gives rise to something known as global dimming. Global dimming is able to reflect back more incoming sunlight, thus it creates a cooling effect. So from this discussion, it becomes very clear that cirrus cloud thinning technique as well as injection of sulfate aerosols are aimed at reducing the global warming. Moving on to the fact of the day. What is the context? The Indian Prime Minister is scheduled to visit Lumbini, the birthplace of Lord Buddha, located in Nepal. This visit will coincide with the birth anniversary of Lord Buddha, also known as Buddha Purnima. Please note that Buddhism is a popular topic when it comes to UPSC prelims exam. Over the years, we have had many questions related to terminologies related to Buddhism as well as places related or associated with the life of Gautam Buddha. So in this context, let us discuss some of the important places associated with the life of Gautam Buddha. As discussed earlier, Lumbini, located in Nepal, is believed to be the birthplace of Lord Buddha. Lord Buddha is believed to have attained enlightenment at Bodh Gaya. Gautam Buddha gave his first sermon at a place called Sarnath, and this event is known as Dharma Chakra Pravartan. Buddha is assumed to have died in a place called Kushinagar. The death of Buddha is also termed as Parinirvana. So, alternatively, Kushinagar is the place where Buddha attained Parinirvana. That is all for today. Thank you for being with us.